The letter wasn't handwritten. It was typed, laser printer, plain white paper, no signature, no return address. Just folded once and slipped into an unmarked envelope. I found it in the mailbox. No stamp, no markings. Someone had walked it to my house. I opened it in the kitchen while my wife was in the shower. Check her phone. Thursday nights. She's not where she says she is. That was it. One line. One cold, surgical cut through the middle of my day. I read it twice. Then a third time. My first instinct was to laugh it off. Thursday nights? She went to a local women's networking group on Thursdays, some kind of small business support circle. She'd been doing it for months. Came back with brochures, notes, sometimes leftovers. We even donated raffle prizes from our business. I'd driven her there before. But something about the letter got under my skin. Not the words themselves, just the way it felt. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It was too specific to be random. Whoever wrote it knew something. They knew her routine. Knew mine too, apparently. I didn't say anything to her that night. But when Thursday rolled around again, I made an excuse to leave work early. I told her I had a supplier issue in another town. She left the house at her usual time, dressed up a little more than normal. I waited 10 minutes, got in my car, and followed her from a distance. She didn't go to the networking center. She didn't even head in that direction. She drove to a steakhouse 20 miles out, parked in the back, and walked in alone. I waited. 15 minutes later, a man joined her. Tall, clean cut, maybe 10 years younger than me. They hugged. Not polite. Intimate. Then they sat down, ordered drinks, and started talking like they were in their own world. I didn't take pictures. I didn't need to. The image was already seared into my brain. Her laughing the way she hadn't laughed with me in years. Touching his arm. Leaning in close. I went home. Poured a glass of bourbon. Sat on the porch. At midnight, she came in smelling like perfume and scotch, kissed me on the head, and said the meeting went long. I nodded. Didn't speak. She went to bed. I stayed up, staring at the trees, wondering what the hell I'd just stepped into. And then I started asking myself the worst question of all. If that part of the letter was true, what else was? Because there was no way this was just about cheating. Something else was going on. And whoever was sending these letters wasn't done yet. I could feel it. The next letter came 3 days later. It was slipped under the door this time. Same envelope. Same typing. No return address. No signature. Just a folded sheet of printer paper. Check the business account. Look for Ellison Consulting. It's not a vendor. It's a drain. That name hit me like a slap. Ellison. The same last name as the man I saw with Lena at the steakhouse. I hadn't known his name until now. But suddenly, the picture started coming into focus. Our business had been doing all right. Not booming, but steady. We owned a mid-sized home furnishings company, custom shelving, cabinetry, that sort of thing. Lena had been running the books for over a decade. Clients trusted her. Hell, I trusted her. She always had a spreadsheet, a signed invoice, a backup plan. I never questioned any of it. Until now. That morning, after Lena left for the gym, I went into the office and sat down at her computer. I had to guess the password. Tried her maiden name. Wrong. Our dog's name. Wrong. Then I remembered the one thing she always used when she wanted something to feel private, her mother's birthday. It worked. Once inside, I opened the accounting software. It looked clean. Organized. Almost too clean. Like it had been polished. But I started scrolling through vendors, and there it was, Ellison Consulting. It showed up 5 times in the past 3 months. Each payment was for $4,200. Descriptions? Vague. Q3 optimization strategy. Client retention analysis. Productivity streamlining. Buzzwords. Meaningless crap. I clicked deeper. No real contracts. No emails. Just invoices. PDF files. All created from the same email address. mark.ellison.consulting@gmail.com. It wasn't a business. It was a funnel. I checked our business credit card. Charges to hotels. Meals. Client dinners, she'd labeled them. But I recognized the dates. They matched up with her supposed out-of-town networking trips. All of it was a lie. She was using our company's money to fund her affair with someone who was probably in on it from the beginning. I sat there in the dark office, the screen glowing in front of me, feeling a cold wave run through my chest. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had used our business, our team, our money. She had taken what we built and fed it into some smug bastard's bank account, like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. I thought back to the past few months. The new dress she said she found on sale. The spa weekend she said her sister gifted her. The random restaurant receipts she said were client appreciation dinners. All lies. I printed everything. Every invoice, every transaction. Then I made backups. 2 flash drives. One went in my safe. The other, taped behind the false panel in my toolbox in the garage, just in case. That night, I didn't say anything. I made dinner like I always did. Pasta with grilled chicken, her favorite. She acted normal. Talked about some supplier who dropped out of an order. Told me about a new yoga instructor she didn't like. I nodded. I smiled. And I realized something terrifying. She thought I was stupid. Not just emotionally blind. Not just distracted or tired. She thought I was a harmless fool. Someone too loyal, too decent, too dull to ever look beneath the surface. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No scenes. No yelling. No tears. That's what she'd expect. That's what she could spin. No. I'd play this her way. Quiet. Careful. Hidden. I'd let her keep digging her hole. Because someone was feeding me this information. Someone who knew where to look. Someone who wanted me to see the whole truth. And if they were willing to keep going, then so was I. By the time the 3rd letter arrived, I'd stopped being surprised. It came on a Wednesday, neatly tucked into my windshield wiper while I was parked at the job site. You're not the only one she lies to. Ask Rachel Myers why she really left. She'll tell you. Rachel. That name made my stomach flip. She used to handle client relations for us. Bright, organized, the kind of person who remembered birthdays and made customers feel like family. She left abruptly 6 months ago. No notice. No goodbye. Just a short email thanking us for the opportunity and saying she was moving on. Lena said Rachel had some kind of family issue out of state and didn't want to talk about it. At the time, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But now, I didn't believe anything Lena said. Not anymore. I found Rachel through LinkedIn and messaged her. Kept it simple. Just said I had a few questions about her time with the company and would appreciate a quick call. To my surprise, she replied within an hour and gave me her number. We talked that evening. Her voice was cautious at first, like she didn't know if she could trust me. I was wondering when you'd reach out, she said finally. That stopped me. You expected this? I didn't know if you'd ever see it. But I hoped. I really did. Then she told me everything. Lena had been siphoning off money long before Ellison showed up. The consulting invoices were just the latest trick. Before that, it was overbilling, false vendors, even reselling inventory under the table and pocketing the cash. Rachel found out by accident. She caught a mismatch between a supplier invoice and what Lena logged in the books. When she brought it up, Lena turned cold. Told her to forget it, that it was a simple error. Rachel pushed back. The next day, Lena called her into the office and made her sign a resignation letter. Told her if she said a word, she'd be buried in legal trouble, embezzlement, misconduct, anything Lena could pin on her. She's smart, Rachel said, but mean and dangerous when she's cornered. I didn't want to fight her, so I walked. I felt like the ground shifted beneath me again. Lena hadn't just betrayed me emotionally or financially. She had built a second life right under my nose. Calculated, protected, and ruthless. And she'd been doing it for years. Rachel paused before hanging up. There's one more thing, she said. That guy, Mark Ellison, he's not just a fling. He's her partner. In all of it. The money, the cover-ups, everything. He coached her on how to hide the paper trail. They're planning something bigger. I don't know what, but I'm pretty sure it involves selling off your company. My throat went dry. Selling the company? That was everything. My name, my work, my legacy. She couldn't do that without my signature, right? Then I remembered something. 2 weeks ago, she asked me to sign a stack of papers before dinner. Said it was routine vendor contracts. I didn't read them. Just signed where she'd marked the X's. A cold sweat broke across my back. I thanked Rachel and hung up. My head was spinning, but the next steps were becoming clear. I dug out the papers I'd signed. Flipped through them page by page. On the 3rd sheet, in tiny print near the bottom, was something that made my blood run cold. Authorization for partial transfer of operational rights to M. Ellison, independent consultant. She was doing it. She was setting me up to be pushed out of my own company. I sat there in my home office, fists clenched, breath tight, staring at the wreckage of trust. And then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a man gets when he's been hit too many times to feel it anymore, when the shock fades, and all that's left is clarity. She thought she had control, but she'd made one mistake. She left me standing, and I was about to take back everything. I wasn't interested in a confrontation. That's what they'd expect. A hurt husband blowing up, making mistakes, tipping his hand. No, I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to believe I was still in the dark. Because people only get careless when they think they've already won. I started tailing them. Not every day, just enough to build a pattern. Lena had changed her routine slightly. No more steakhouse rendezvous. Now it was late lunches, weekday business trips, phone calls in the garage instead of the kitchen. She was hiding better now, but not well enough. Mark Ellison drove a black Range Rover. Subtle enough to blend in, but expensive enough to signal status. I followed him twice, once from our office to a co-working space downtown, and once to a private residence on the edge of town. Same address both times. Not his house. A rental, likely under a shell company. I wrote the address down. When Lena met him there, she always parked 2 blocks away and walked in through the back gate. Same hat. Same oversized sunglasses. Like a teenager sneaking into a movie. I took pictures. Not the kind you post. The kind that sit in a file folder marked leverage. Their meetings weren't romantic anymore. At least not in the pictures. Lots of pointing at laptops, thick folders, and whiteboards inside. One shot I caught through the open blinds showed a large architectural diagram taped to the wall. It wasn't a house, it was a layout. A commercial building of some kind. Whatever they were doing, it wasn't just about the affair anymore. They were building something. A business? A hostile takeover? A second version of what we'd already built, but without me? The letters kept coming. Always timed, always ahead of the curve. One showed up on the seat of my truck with a single sentence. They're using your client list to poach contracts. Check the emails. It was right. I dug into our CRM system. Found dozens of emails flagged as follow-ups that never made it to me. Lena had set up a rule that forwarded select responses to a hidden folder. From there, she'd pass them to a secondary Gmail account. I traced that account. It linked directly to Mark. They weren't just using company resources for their little side game. They were actively stealing clients, pricing them lower, then onboarding them through a shell company. I found a matching invoice from Whitestone Interiors LLC, newly registered. Lena's mother's maiden name used as the owner. Elegant. Clean. Almost impressive. Almost. But here's the thing about thieves. They always leave fingerprints. Especially when they start thinking they're smarter than everyone else. I took my findings to a friend of mine, Paul, a former client and now a corporate attorney. Trusted, quiet, and meticulous. He didn't say much at first. Just reviewed everything I laid out. Bank records, forged contracts, the business registration for Whitestone Interiors. Then he looked at me and said, "You're sitting on a gold mine, and she's about to walk straight into a legal firestorm." I asked him what I needed to do next. He said, "Nothing. Yet. Keep collecting. Keep documenting. Let her hang herself." So I did. I let her keep smiling across the dinner table. Let her keep telling stories about supply chain delays and tricky vendors. I watched her schedule phone calls and slide away to take them behind closed doors. I played the part. The tired husband. The distracted business owner. The man who was just grateful things were getting back to normal. And while she slept, I made copies. While she showered, I downloaded call logs. I placed a hidden camera in her home office. Not for photos of her, but for the laptop screen, the emails, the meetings over Zoom. Every night, I filed it all into an encrypted folder and emailed it to myself under a fake name. I was patient, because what they didn't realize was that this wasn't going to end in a screaming match or a quiet divorce. This was going to end in court, in headlines, in handcuffs. And when it did, I wouldn't have to lift a finger. I'd just have to press send. I didn't sleep much that week. Every night, I stayed up past midnight, going through the footage from Lena's office camera frame by frame. Most of it was uneventful, her checking emails, opening spreadsheets, texting, laughing softly to herself like she was already living in a different life. But Thursday night changed everything. She had a Zoom call with Mark. I couldn't hear the audio, but they both had notebooks out. She shared her screen. My camera caught enough to make out the file name. Exit strategy, final draft.pdf. I froze the video, zoomed in. Then I recreated what I could see from the file, handwritten notes, bullet points, a projected sale date, and something that made my hands go cold, an internal transfer of all our business's core assets to a holding company listed as Marlin Group LLC. The name was a blend, Mark and Lena. How clever. They weren't just stealing from me. They were gutting the company from the inside out, slowly selling off our proprietary designs, our vendor contracts, even client databases, all under fake licensing agreements and consulting fees. By the time I would have realized what had happened, the books would show a legal, if unfortunate, transition, and I'd be standing alone, broke, with my name still on the tax forms. But the worst part? They had timed the final asset transfer for the same week Lena and I were supposed to fly to Denver for a trade show. She'd insisted I come this year, said it would be good for visibility. Now I knew why. She wanted me out of town, so I wouldn't be around to see the final pieces move. And by the time I came home, I'd find nothing left. No company, no marriage, no truth. They were going to disappear. Together. I sat with that knowledge for a long time. Hours, maybe. The kind of stillness where the world just stopped spinning. Then I started making phone calls. First, I called Paul, my attorney friend, and walked him through everything I just uncovered. He asked for screenshots, video, file names, anything I could gather. I gave him everything. He told me to keep acting normal and to let him pull some strings in the background. Next, I called an old client named Wes, runs a digital forensics firm now. Owes me a favor from years back. I gave him the fake accounts, the emails, the consulting invoices from Ellison. Told him to quietly track their online footprints, cloud storage, dummy Gmail logins, IP addresses. 3 hours later, he called back. You were right, he said. They've got a shared Google Drive with folders labeled Post-Sale Phase and Marlin Expansion West. Looks like they're planning to open a separate company in Arizona. So they really were planning to vanish. Lena and I had gone on vacation there last spring, Scottsdale. She said she loved the sun, the clean look of the desert homes. Said it made her feel new. At the time, I thought it was just a wistful comment. Now I saw it for what it was. She'd been scouting her fresh start. With him. Using our money. Using my trust. I leaned back in my chair, phone still in hand, and stared at the ceiling. The betrayal didn't burn anymore, it calcified. Turned into something sharper. Cleaner. I was done grieving. Now I was planning. My final move had to be perfect. No shouting. No begging. No drama. Just truth, delivered with precision. So I drafted an anonymous tip and sent it to the IRS, flagging suspicious business activity, embezzlement, and falsified contracts under Whitestone Interiors and Marlin Group. Then I emailed a second tip to the State Attorney General's office with supporting documentation, company records, video stills, sample invoices. And last, I contacted one of our longtime clients, a regional interior design magazine editor who adored Lena's professionalism. I sent her a packet, labeled Story Pitch, the face behind the fraud. No name, no return address, just the truth. It was time to let the fire start catching, and all I had to do was stand back and watch it burn. By the time the Denver trip rolled around, I was ready. Lena was cheerful, even affectionate. In the airport, she took my arm like she used to, as if years of distance hadn't passed between us. On the plane, she read her magazine and leaned her head against my shoulder like nothing was wrong. It was theater. All of it. She thought this was the final stretch. The week where she kept me busy, out of town, away from the real action while Mark handled the final transfers back home. She didn't know I had already canceled all key transactions scheduled for that week, quietly, legally, and through Paul. And she certainly didn't know what I'd arranged for the morning of day 2 in Denver. But we'll get there. At the trade show, she was in full performance mode, smiling at old contacts, passing out cards, introducing me like the proud wife of a successful business owner. If there were awards for pretending, Lena would have taken home a trophy. Back in the hotel room, she made a few evening phone calls to vendors. I heard her code words. We're on track. The file's ready. He's fully out of loop. She didn't realize I'd bugged her work phone 2 weeks ago. I listened in from my laptop while she was in the shower. The key phrase came from Mark on the other end. We close the accounts Friday morning. Then we vanish. I smiled. Friday morning, huh? Let me tell you what happened Friday morning. We were scheduled to speak at a panel discussion. Lena insisted on doing it together. Show them the strength of the Whitmore brand, she said. We're still a team. I agreed. The ballroom was packed. Maybe 70, 80 people. Vendors, designers, regional press. Even some of our longtime clients had come for the conference. I had called in a favor 2 days earlier. That interior design editor I mentioned? The one who adored Lena? She dug into the file I sent, and what she found shocked her. But what really got her attention were the client names Lena had tried to poach. Some of them were friends of hers. She didn't just believe me. She was furious. So she arranged for a local investigative reporter to attend the panel. Not as press, as a guest, with a hidden recorder. We took the stage, Lena glowing beside me. She started her usual pitch about innovation, sustainability, how we'd kept our business family-owned and ethically grounded. She said those exact words. Ethically grounded. I let her talk. And then, when it was my turn, I stepped to the mic and said, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the people in this room. Not just for showing up today, but for sticking with us, for sticking with me, through what's about to come next. Lena turned her head, confused. I kept going. For the past several months, my wife and her business partner have been using company resources to embezzle funds, steal client information, and funnel assets into a shell company under a different name. They've created a second business using our clients, our tools, and our reputation. What they didn't count on was me paying attention. You could have heard a pin drop. I looked at Lena. Her face had gone pale. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I gestured to the projector behind us and clicked the remote. Up came the first slide, a screenshot of one of the fake invoices from Ellison Consulting. The next slide, the Arizona business registration for Marlin Group LLC. Then, a list of client names cross-referenced between our records and theirs. Then, a video still of Mark and Lena in the rental house, whiteboard behind them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The moderator tried to step in. I waved him off. I'm not here to make a scene, I said. I'm here to tell the truth. And to let our clients and partners know that moving forward, Whitmore Custom Interiors will operate without fraud, without deception, and without Lena Whitmore. That was the moment she finally spoke. Quietly, sharply. You planned this, she hissed. I looked right at her and said, just loud enough for the mic. No, Lena, you did. I just wrote the ending. The crowd didn't clap. They didn't need to. The silence said everything. And I walked off the stage, leaving her frozen in front of everyone she'd ever fooled. We flew home separately. Lena didn't even try to ride back with me. After the panel, she vanished, stormed out of the ballroom with her phone pressed to her ear, trying to call someone who would tell her it wasn't all falling apart. But it was. By the time I landed, the reporter had already published the first piece. It wasn't just online, it was moving fast. Headline: Small business, big betrayal, local power couple implodes in alleged fraud scheme. She used names, dates, screenshots, and then the phone call started. Our clients, our vendors, some angry, some stunned. A few just said, I'm sorry, Jack. We had no idea. I spent the next 2 days meeting with partners face-to-face, explaining what I could, showing what I documented, and, most importantly, telling them the truth. No excuses. No spin. That honesty bought me something rare: respect. People wanted to help me salvage the business. A few even offered financial support, knowing how deep the damage went. But what meant the most were the quiet nods, the handshakes, the looks that said, you did the right thing, and you did it the right way. Lena, meanwhile, went underground. She didn't come home, didn't call. Her office was cleaned out by Monday. Mark had cleared the rental too. They were on the run, but they weren't fast enough. Because Paul, my attorney, had already filed for injunctive relief. That froze every account tied to Whitmore Interiors, Whitestone, and Marlin Group. They couldn't touch a dollar. Then came the IRS. Apparently, they'd been sniffing around for a while. My anonymous tip wasn't the first they'd received, but it was the most complete. Between the tax discrepancies, the off-the-books income, and the fraudulent vendor contracts, it was more than enough to open a case. I got a call from an agent 2 days later. Friendly but direct. We don't often get this level of documentation, she said. Your wife is in serious trouble. She asked if I'd be willing to testify if it came to that. I said, without hesitation, yes. By midweek, Lena tried to reach out. I got an email first, then a voicemail, then a letter, handwritten. Jack, I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted something that felt like mine. You were always so in control. I needed something of my own. It was a weak defense, but it told me something important. She still thought this was about her being trapped. That somehow, I had pushed her into the arms of another man and into embezzling 6 figures from our business. She didn't understand, not even now, that the betrayal wasn't about money or control or ownership. It was about trust, and she'd torched it. A week after the panel, Lena showed up at the office. Unannounced. Hair tied back, no makeup, dark glasses, like she thought she could blend in with the drywall and blueprints. I met her in the parking lot. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "You're trespassing," I said. "And there's nothing left to say. Jack, please. We can fix this. We can settle quietly." She still didn't get it. "It's already loud, Lena. You made it loud. You don't get to choose silence now." She started to cry, but I'd seen enough of those tears to know they weren't for me. They were for her. For the empire she thought she built behind my back. For the life she planned with Mark that was now ashes. I walked back inside and locked the door behind me. The next morning, I found out Mark had skipped town. Gone. No forwarding address. His phone disconnected. But his name was on enough paperwork to keep him in the spotlight, in the investigation. Lena wasn't as lucky. She still had a local presence. Her name was on the company. On the checks. On the contracts. She couldn't run. By Friday, the state's white-collar crimes division contacted Paul. They wanted to talk to Lena. He said, "It's starting." I nodded. "It's ending." The subpoena came on a Tuesday. 2 plainclothes agents walked into the office looking like clients, button-down shirts, calm faces, polite smiles. One of them asked for Lena. I told them she no longer worked here. They handed me the envelope anyway. Notice to appear, grand jury investigation, fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. I didn't say a word, just nodded and took it inside. Sat at my desk for a long while before opening it. Not because I was afraid, because I needed to let that moment sit. This was the ending she wrote for herself. 3 days later, Lena was served at her sister's house, where she'd been hiding out. She didn't resist. There were no cuffs. No cameras. Just quiet shame wrapped in legal formality. And still, part of me expected some last-minute twist. Some attempt to spin it all back on me. That twist came a week later, at the hearing. She showed up with a lawyer in an overpriced suit and a folder full of mitigating documents. I watched from the back of the courtroom as her attorney tried to paint her as a passive participant. A woman manipulated by Mark Ellison. A woman in a toxic marriage who was financially isolated and emotionally pushed to the brink. I almost laughed. The prosecutor didn't. She brought out my files. The invoices, the transfers, the hidden Gmail threads, the video clips. Then she walked the court through Lena's own spreadsheets, the one she created, altered, signed. Each document tighter than the last, like a noose she tied herself. And then it was my turn. I took the stand. Calm, plain-spoken. No dramatics. I told the truth. I told them how I trusted her. How I built the company with her. How I didn't suspect a thing until the letters came. I talked about the documents I found, the fake vendors, the shell companies, the way she tried to push me out. I mentioned how she asked me to sign papers without telling me what they were. And when the defense attorney tried to rattle me, imply that maybe I was neglectful, that maybe I let the business fall into disarray, I just looked at him and said, "She didn't just cheat on me. She betrayed everything we built. She used my name, my company, my life as a weapon against me. And now that it's turned back on her, she wants to play the victim." That shut him up. The judge didn't render a final sentence that day. It was a preliminary hearing, not sentencing, but you could feel the tone shift. Lena was no longer the clean, polished businesswoman in control of the story. She was a defendant, and the evidence was eating her alive. Later that afternoon, outside the courthouse, she tried to catch me before I got to my truck. "Jack, wait. Please." I turned, and for the first time, I saw it, not fear, not guilt, but desperation. Not because she hurt me, but because she'd lost. "Just talk to me," she said. "We were something once. That has to matter." I looked at her, really looked at her. Not the woman I married. Not the woman who'd betrayed me. Just someone standing in the wreckage she created, trying to salvage whatever piece of herself was still above water. "You're right," I said. "We were something. But what matters now is that I'm not you." Then I got in my truck and drove away. The investigation widened after that. Turns out, Mark had a history of running small-scale scams in other states. Nothing big enough to land him in prison, but enough to raise flags once people started looking. With Lena's cooperation, or what was left of it, they traced dozens of side deals. A few of them were federal-level crimes. And though she tried to make a deal, the prosecutor didn't bite. She was too involved, too central, too active. They weren't going to let her walk. And neither was I. The sentencing came 6 weeks later. No press. No cameras. Just a small courtroom, a federal judge, and the dull quiet that settles over people when they know there's no more story to tell, only outcomes. Lena stood there in a navy suit that didn't fit quite right anymore. Her hair pulled back tight, eyes down, hands clasped like she still thought someone might come rescue her. But no one did. Mark never showed up. The feds tried tracking him through his rental accounts, crypto transfers, and even a Canadian shell corporation, but he vanished. Just like that. A ghost with a briefcase. He left Lena holding the entire bag. The judge didn't waste time. He read the charges: fraud, wire fraud, falsifying business records, attempted tax evasion. Then he went over the evidence, the emails, the forged signatures, the false consulting invoices, and her direct involvement in transferring over $200,000 in company assets to a fake business. She pled guilty to avoid a trial. Her lawyer had hoped for probation, maybe house arrest with restitution. Instead, the judge gave her 18 months in federal prison and 5 years probation after that, plus a full financial judgment, restitution to the business, IRS penalties, legal costs, and a ban from holding a director position at any company for 10 years. It wasn't life-ruining in the dramatic sense, but it was everything she built, burned to the ground. The last I saw of her that day, she was being led down a side hallway by a marshal. No cuffs, just silence. She didn't look back, and I didn't wait. After the sentence, things moved fast. I filed for divorce the following Monday. No contest, no delay. She signed the papers from county jail before being transferred to the federal facility. We split assets per the prenup, but there wasn't much left to split. Mark had drained most of their side accounts before he disappeared. She was left with her own debt, and now, a felony record. The house? Mine. The business? Still standing. Barely. Rebuilding wasn't easy. I lost a few clients who didn't want to be associated with the scandal, but more stuck around than I expected. Some even called just to say they respected the way I handled it, quiet, clear, without drama. That meant something. I rehired Rachel. She was hesitant at first, understandably, but when she walked back into the office, I saw it in her face. She still believed in what we'd built. What I'd built. Without the lies. She helped clean up the mess. Rebuilt client relationships. Filed clean books. She didn't say much about Lena. She didn't have to. We both knew what kind of person she really was. Lena wrote me one more time. From prison. It was 6 pages long. Apologies. Explanations. Nostalgia. Some twisted attempt to remind me of vacations we took, the house we remodeled, the night we first opened our storefront. She asked if, when she got out, we could maybe talk. Start again, she wrote, from a place of honesty. I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter. Because I was finally free. Last I heard, Lena was doing clerical work in prison. Low security. Some kind of GED tutoring program on the side. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her anything at all. She made her choices. She used me, used our business, used our name. And in the end, it all fell apart because she couldn't see the one thing that would have saved her. I wasn't her enemy. I was her anchor. But she cut the rope.